more just generally bad than most other Arab systems. However, there is a private sector in Syria that has been there for literally thousands of years and that has survived and indeed flourished underneath this difficult to describe. It's a kind of combination of socialism and the mafia with a few other things thrown in. It is a nightmare, and they have flourished. And this, to me, is the bottom line, because Jordan has stability, and the king goes to Davos, the queen goes shopping in Manhattan. It's a normal place, as America would recognize. There's no entrepreneurship in Jordan. Nobody wants to do anything except collect the check from USAID and the CIA at the end of the month. Now the Syrians, you got me started on my favorite subject. The Syrians were, under Ronald Reagan and others, were kept out of any kind of relationship with the West, and they were denied globalization. Syria is the only country in the world which is neither a member of the WTO, nor is it not applying to the WTO. It has actually applied, but the application was not received. This is the unique case in the world. The reason is that the great white father in Washington and the little white and brown father in Tel Aviv don't like the Syrians, because the Syrians are not what black Americans call Uncle Toms. Now, had the Syrians been befriended by Ronald Reagan and George Shultz in the 80s, they would have become another stupid little debt-ridden banana republic like Jordan and some of these other countries. Syria today has no foreign debt. Not because the Syrians are manly, wise, and wonderful people, because they were not allowed to borrow money from the United States and other Western powers. So the Syrians today are in a very interesting position that could be very healthy. Now, an American ambassador is turning up in Syria soon. Mr. Robert Ford has been nominated to be the next U.S. ambassador in Damascus. It would be interesting to see how the relationship with Syria develops. Forget about the politics, I'm talking about the aid. If Syria is going to become a semi-aid junkie like Jordan and Egypt, or if Syria is going to preserve its entrepreneurial spirit and turn into a really vibrant, powerful economy. I hope it's the latter.
I'm waiting for your drinking. I have a question about the financial sector in Lebanon that you spoke of so highly as blossoming and growing and so forth. It occurs to me that the Quran has put a few difficulties in the way of...
Sorry, the what has put it in?
The Quran. Am I pronouncing it wrong?
Quran.
Quran. Pardon me. Now I know. That there is some trouble religiously with charging interest, although I know there are ways of getting around it. But I'm wondering whether the Christian minority in Lebanon has a kind of monopoly or semi-monopoly of the financial sector that's blooming so well, and whether that, the way the Chinese in Southeast Asia have certain monopolies that are resented by the Malaysians and Indonesians and so forth. Is there a certain ethnic problem developing in Lebanon around the financial sector?
Quick answer is no, but it's a good point, because maybe a couple of hundred years ago it was like that, but today no, it's not. I was in the southern suburbs of Beirut in the mid-80s. This was the blackest time. This was when Hezbollah was actually a terrorist organization. The only thing they did was kidnap people and blow up people. And it was Christmas time, and I saw rows and rows of Christmas trees and Christmas decorations. This is in the heart of the Hezbollah country. And I said to my friend who took me there, we were on business, nothing to do with politics. I said, what is this? He said, this is business. These guys are in it for the money. And that's what Lebanon is all about. The most long-bearded, maniacal-looking Hezbollah guy is actually there to make money. And that's what Lebanon is all about. That's why Lebanon still survives today. That's why it hasn't collapsed. So in terms of banking, the banking sector used to be dominated by Christians for that reason and possibly for others. It's now opened up to the Muslims, and the biggest bank in Lebanon is now the bank of Saad Hariri, the prime minister, Medbank, which is managed by, or was managed by Mr. Signora, the former prime minister, both of whom are Sunni Muslims. So that element is not there anymore.
But Lebanon is also secular, even I mean secular. I think even if they, I mean, it wouldn't abide by the Quranic laws to that extent.
The Quran, let me backtrack a little bit. The Quran is a virulently capitalist document. There is nothing in the Quran like our New Testament that says it is harder for a rich man to enter heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of the. In the Quran, the message is you go out there and you make money. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad himself was an extremely successful businessman. Now, the Quran forbids the taking of interest on a non-risk basis, which is extremely interesting and very intelligent. What the Quran says is, you want to charge interest, there has to be risk. That's what the Quran says. And that is actually very sound business. The Quran is against the free lunch, which I think is the basis of what used to be American civilization before the healthcare bill was passed.
Thanks very much for your presentation, Riad. I'm Andrew Tabler from the Washington Institute. I really enjoyed your comments on Syria, and I totally agree with you in terms of the Syrian entrepreneurship, and especially in and around Damascus, but throughout the country. I also totally agree with you about your second point, which I think was very interestingly right next to it, and that was corruption. The United States has lifted its block on Syria's WTO application, and that'll be officially announced in May. And from your standpoint, and I know you've done a lot of work on this through the World Bank and other institutions, and I think with the findings of your work there, as far as I remember them, showed that Syria suffered from some of the worst bureaucratic hurdles in the world, the lowest total factor productivity in the world, and all these obstacles that people were trying to overcome. How can the WTO application and accession solve those problems for Syria? And the reason why I ask this is that Syria also has been offered an association agreement by the EU, albeit with some caveats, and currently at the moment Syria is dragging its feet, not just for human rights reasons, but for economic reasons. So what could the WTO do to fix this problem for Syria?
A lot. And this has been a pattern in many countries, including Jordan, for example. The pattern is like this. There's a problem, let's say, in the industrial sector, and the industrialists go on, we have to raise tariffs and impose restrictions. We want a subsidy, and you have to forbid this and ban that. And the government says, but the WTO doesn't let us do this. It's like the Europeans with Brussels. There is a, what's the expression, supranational? There is an overriding legal or moral factor that overcomes government's weakness vis-a-vis certain interest groups. And this will operate the dynamic in Syria is going to be interesting, because the private sector in Syria is going to wave this stick over the government's